all you need is, the courage to bet on yourself. But I've seen a lot of great founders I know where I'm like, wow, that person's amazing. And like, they're not just motivated by what can be, but also by the prospect of losing. Both things make them really, really intimidating.
School and society sort of sets us up to be employees and not to be business owners and not to take risk and not to try new things.
I think the great businesses will emerge that are able to combine their creativity with the power of the AI using fewer resources and time than ever before. The way the technology works is it looks at things that happened in the past to predict the present. It cannot take the present and predict the future. That's only something that humans can do. Most products that fail, I think they don't listen to customers, they make it too complicated, or they deliver a low quality product. If you want to be a successful business person, you have to build something for other people. And it is often not the thing that you want to do for you. It's often something that people tell you.
You've worked at the White House. Could you just tell us, for folks that haven't been fortunate enough to see the White House in person, what is that like? Thank you for coming on our podcast. Could you tell us a little bit about what Blaze is doing?
Yeah, Blaze is the #1 AI marketing tool for small businesses and teams of one. So we help entrepreneurs, small business owners, freelancers, creatives, agencies generate and schedule and post content that helps grow their business. So Blaze produces text, images, and video content in the form of social media posts, newsletters, blog posts, websites. And on average, Blaze customers who stick with the product for 3 months have seen their revenue grow more than 3 times. And that's because a lot of small business owners, as you probably know, need to produce great content to grow awareness, increase impressions, drive more revenue or sales, but they don't have time or money or often the skills to do so. They're wearing 10 hats, serving customers, paying bills, coming up with new ideas every day, and social media or increasing your relevance on Google is a full-time job. And Blaze is essentially a virtual marketer that does it for you. And what Blaze is really great at is hyper-personalized content. So just with your website, we can create content that looks and sounds like you. It's basically like hiring the best social media manager or SEO marketer you've ever had. We launched probably a year and a half ago, and now we serve over 2 million customers. So it's been a really exciting ride to see a ton of people kind of level the playing fields against the competitors in their area and build the kind of company they've always imagined.
That's great. Congratulations. Very successful so far and much more success to come, I'm sure. For folks who don't know your background, it's pretty interesting. You've worked at the White House, Apple, and Lyft, among other places. Could you just tell us, for folks that haven't been fortunate enough to see the White House in person, what is that like?
It's amazing. It was actually my first job out of college, which is pretty crazy. So it was, it's all been downhill from there, so to speak. But I was a 21-year-old working in the White House on the National Economic Council in the Obama administration. One of the things I took away from it, besides the fact that there's tons of smart people working in the White House, is that, we, I think for decades have looked to government as, a way to solve problems. That's certainly graduating from college was my theory of change in the world, that, great policy alone could really improve outcomes for folks. And I think that's still important. We need government to work for people. But I was really focused in college on income inequality and how do we help people get out of poverty. And what I learned through working in the White House is that the best way to do that is actually to help people make more money themselves. The only guaranteed way to get people out of poverty is to get them basically a living wage. Obviously, in America, we can do that through increasing the amount of jobs that we create here, or helping people create their own work through entrepreneurship. And so I think a lot of the things I learned in the White House, I've applied to what I've done now 15 years later. But what drives me and I think our team at Blaze is the idea that we are helping people realize their dreams in a sense. And I talk to customers every day, one yesterday who was able to take his wife on vacation for the first time in 13 years. I talked to a mom in Indiana last week who has 10x her business. I've talked to a wedding photographer in Pennsylvania who now has a lot more time to take on more clients because Blaze is helping her do our marketing. And so it's stories like that kind of make good on this question. I think a lot of us, including the folks I worked at the White House with many years ago, were asking, which is like, how do we help more people make more money? How do we help people take more control over their futures? Certainly we need healthcare, in my opinion. To do that, we need great education. We need good infrastructure. But we also need ways for small business owners and most Americans just to make more money. And I think it was unclear, I think, how we were going to do that for a long time. And we now, I think, have a technology that can help with that big problem we're all trying to solve.
Nice. It's interesting. David and I were talking yesterday about how school and society sort of sets us up to be employees and not to be business owners and not to take risk and not to try new things. And so I think the space of making it easier for business owners and making it easier for entrepreneurs is such a huge space because people don't know what to do. They are wearing multiple hats. They've never been taught how to manage all of those different things. So the more companies can fill in the gaps for other companies, the better. I wanted to pick up quickly, sorry, the growth that you've had sounds insane in a very short amount of time. What have been some of the great things that have come from that, but also I'm sure some of the challenges that have come from that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Our team at Blaze has actually been working together for 5 years. We had another product before Blaze called Almanac, which was a collaboration tool for remote and distributed teams. And that was actually not a failure in any respect. It was growing pretty fast. We had a bunch of the world's largest remote companies using it. But remote work as kind of a technology trend to power growth is more like climate change, in that I think it'll take 30 years for a generation of managers to retire, for younger folks like me who prefer to work from home to take over and permanently institute those policies. And when you're running a startup, you don't have 30, 40 years to wait for all that change to happen. So we had built a core technology with Almanac around a document editor and collaboration tools that we were able to repurpose into Blaze. And so I think AI, as I'm sure you've seen from headlines, is much more like a tidal wave or a tsunami, where it's a dramatic and disruptive change that has created a ton of new market opportunities. And that certainly is what's fueling our growth. The hard part about building a high growth startup is not the product side. If you have a good enough team and enough time, you can build basically anything these days. The hard part is finding a really good market. And you can have a great team in a bad market and it be really, really hard, and kind of a bad team in a good market and be really, really easy, because it's finding a huge unmet need that is almost like drilling for oil or scavenging for gold in a stream. It's really hard to do. It takes some luck and a lot of perseverance and a lot of learning along the way to find. And we certainly have found that with Blaze. And so I think some of the great things about our growth are that even when our product has not been up to par or we're missing certain features, the strength of the demand and the swiftness of the trend almost has created some forgiveness for us, because people complain, which is great to hear. We love feedback here. We ask for it all day long from our customers. But in a bad market, people might churn or not use your product if you don't have every single thing they need. But when the demand is great enough, people will forgive you for things you don't have yet, which is important because we're growing so fast that we can't possibly build everything that people need, in a matter of weeks. I think the challenge is that you have to grow as fast as the company is in every respect. Of course, as an individual, certainly, but also as a company. We've dealt with things that I couldn't have even dreamed of when the growth accelerated. Like we've had, for example, like cash flow issues, because we had so much money that we were spending on some of our growth or some of our bills that like we forgot to move money around in accounts because we didn't think that we'd spend that much money per month. Kind of like a silly mistake, but just like all of a sudden, like cash in our bank accounts was a big issue, because, and not that we were insolvent or anything, but just because like we didn't expect to be taking in or spending that much money out. Customer service, we now have a 24/7 customer service operation, but when we started, we had customer service was internal. We all took shifts, and in a matter of weeks, we had to figure out how do we bring on a team of 10 customer service agents, train them in our protocols, make sure that they're adhering to our brand standards. And even for a minute, it was kind of only weekdays from certain hours. And we have so many customers now that we need to cover weekends. We need to cover nights. They're all around the world. It's kind of things like that you don't expect, where you're like, oh yes, we need to operate a real business now, and we need to do it on every single front, and we need to do it yesterday. And a lot of those growing pains are they're good pain, because I'd rather, of course, be dealing with a lot of growth than not. But they're stressful nonetheless, and they could kill your business if you don't handle them correctly.
Blaze's ability to maintain brand voice with AI is a standout feature. How did you ensure this level of personalization and efficiency?
In general, with Blaze, we're not the first to market. There were tools like Jasper and Copy AI that had basically exclusive licenses to ChatGPT before anyone else. Those were the first movers in the market. I don't spend a lot of time looking at competitors, but I'm pretty sure that we're growing faster than them now. And that's because ultimately what customers care about is quality. Even if you have the right value prop, even if you're first, it doesn't matter if you don't produce good quality outcomes. And what we're building with Blaze over time is really AI that does marketing for you. We're building this virtual marketer, and it essentially is like hiring a human on your team who can figure out what your company does, who your customers are, what differentiates you, what channels you should be in, how often you should be posting, what you should be talking about, and then just does it. And none of that matters if the content itself isn't good. You don't want AI that is marketing for you if the marketing sucks. So we've invested just a ton of time in high quality content. And to your point, what that really means for a lot of customers is content that doesn't sound like AI, doesn't have generic internet voice, doesn't pick bad stock images, but actually reflects your brand, your style. And a lot of that is just investing really hundreds and hundreds of hours in improving our ability to take information from you with the minimum possible investment and give it to AI in a way that allows us to extract as much information about you. So we actually spend a lot of time. We have a marketing team at Blaze that helps us grow our product, but our marketing team does a lot of the prompt engineering for us because they're marketers. They know what questions to ask. They're experts themselves. And so rather than having a product manager do it or an engineer do it, we actually have our marketing team work and test and refine our prompts that we pass to the AI. We also spend a lot of time on kind of the first part of how do we get the most from you with the least possible input. So now with our brand kit, all you have to do is give us your website, and we're able from that to scan your social media pages, look to see what you've written online, look, for example, for customer quotes, like a lot of really detailed stuff that might take you in another product, like 100 questions to fill out, or even if you're working with an agency, might take a month to onboard to. And so it's kind of both sides of the ROI equation for us that we're trying to optimize: low input, maximum output. Our customers are busy, they're non-technical, they have lots of stuff to do. And so we want to make it as easy and simple and fun as possible to get to high quality content. And ultimately we want the experience to approximate what you go through with the very best employee or the very best agency you could ever hire for, in our case, only $100 a month.
What was the most difficult moment in transitioning from Almanac to Blaze, and how did you keep your team motivated?
It actually wasn't hard at all. And I don't mean to not answer your question, but, building a startup is really about mastering a set of skills, I think, that are agnostic to the market or the customer or the product. Learning how to listen to customers and figure out what they really want, figuring out what to build and why, in what order, determining how to position your product in a way that cuts through the noise or stops the scroll. Those are all skills that you need to be really, really great at to take anything to market successfully. And they take a lot of time and practice to master. And, it feels like in a lot of ways that with Almanac, we were kind of practicing and definitely getting, base hits and whatnot, so that when, this huge wave came with AI, we were ready to hit a grand slam. And so the team, everybody understood why we were changing directions. Everyone was motivated. Yeah, there was no emotional distress or anything like that, because I think, at least internally, we've always been really clear and transparent about what game we're playing. When the minute you take venture capital, you're on the hook to build not just any business or like a business that's growing okay or profitable, but you're on the hook to build a $1 billion business, one that could return the fund of our investors even if all their other investments failed. And there are very few businesses that can do that. And everybody in our team knew that that's the game that we signed up to play. And they knew that Almanac, while it would be a great business, wasn't going to be that business. And so there was it's really sad, I think, for me and everybody else to stop working on an idea that we all believed in and we still think was the right one. But, the most fun thing is to win and it's not fun to lose. And even if you have a great culture and you're building fun things and you like who you're working with, like, it's not fun if people don't use it. It's really fun to work on something that the minute you launch it, 100,000 people use your feature, you get data and feedback. And so, the motivation was there for the pivot from the start. And because we had been practicing, it was just like doing anything else we were doing. It's just like going out for another game, even though that game turns out to be, the World Series. And I think just being warmed up, knowing how to work together, and just doing the same great work we had been doing for, every single week for the last 5 years enabled us to succeed.
Sounds like capable decision making on your part as well, not to kind of fall into the sunk cost fallacy, understand the timing. And perhaps you can go back to Almanac later. But it seems like Blaze is the place to be for now.
Yeah. I think a lot of founders don't sometimes understand the game they're playing, and the best founders I know have just this incredible willpower. And yes, with Blaze, I am deeply motivated by the vision we have for the company. I think we have an opportunity to basically rewrite the rules of the economy and who gets to win in America, back to my days at the White House. I think with Blaze, we can build a future where it's not just about what connections you have or what family you were born into, what schools you went to, but instead what really matters is what we say matters in our political dialogue right now, which is, do you have a great idea? Are you willing to bet on yourself? Do you have the courage and commitment to see it through? I think with AI, we can actually build a world where that is reality, where all you need is, the courage to bet on yourself. I don't think that's true today, but I think we're building a world where it is possible. And I'm motivated by that. I'm motivated by the stories that I hear from our customers, but I'm also motivated by not failing. And I think there are moments of clarity as a founder where your back is against a wall, like me realizing that the thing that I had been building for 5 years wasn't going to be the grand slam I wanted. And in those moments, a lot of founders, I think, if not give up, at least go do something easier, or take a way out, sell their company and go work for somebody else for 4 years, and, still probably make a couple $1,000,000. It's not a bad outcome. It's nothing to sneer at or judge. But I think those moments of truth are where certain, kind of people separate themselves into different groups. And there's just no way that I was going to let the hard work of our team and the commitment and faith of our investors lead to anything less than a stellar outcome. And so, yeah, for us, there's just it's hard for me to explain, but there's just like no way that we're going to fail here. and that's a belief that not just I have, but the rest of our team has too. Everybody's in it to win it. And so it's hard for me to imagine any other outcome than that. And I think great founders all have that really strong sense of willpower, where you just know that you don't want to go up against them, because like there's no way that they're going to allow you to win. Like they will outwork you, they will outlast you. And I have that kind of, I think, intensity inside of me. And I see it. It's hard for me to see it in myself, but I see it in a lot of great founders I know, where I'm like, wow, that person's amazing. And like, I don't know how they're going to get to where they're going, but I know they will. Because they're not just motivated by what can be, but also by the prospect of losing. And they're just, both things make them really, really intimidating people.
It's kind of, in a way, a positive spin on the sunk cost fallacy, because it's not, oh, this didn't work, let's know when to quit, which is a good thing to be able to do, rather than keep doubling down on something that's not working. But instead it was, we've put in this time, this resource, we've got these ideas, we've got these people that we're working with, and that's working well. Some of these things are working well, but their output isn't quite working. Redirect it, pivot, take all of that with us, and allow it to keep us going. And I guess some people take many, many pivots, and it was obviously great that it was Almanac to Blaze, and Blaze seems to be blazing. On a question there, actually, does Blaze use Blaze for its marketing?
Yeah, all the time. It's funny. I'm not a professional marketer in any right, but I think I'm pretty good at communicating. And I write a newsletter these days. I do a lot of content on LinkedIn and on TikTok and Instagram. And I often start each week writing a newsletter thinking like, oh, well, I write so uniquely. I have my own thoughts. Like, why would I use AI to help me? And then I go and sit in front of my computer for 2 hours and stare at a blank page. And then most weeks I'm like, I should probably use Blaze to help me. And I will essentially dictate to Blaze what I'm thinking. And every single time, it's not only super fast, it produces basically a structure or even a first draft of a blog post in minutes, but it's always better than I think it's going to be. And my team has actually created a version of Blaze through our brand kit that approximates me. They've given it all my writing. They've fed it like my internal notes. They've given it voice recordings of me. And so Blaze like knows how I think now. It knows how I speak. It's kind of scary. But I read the blog post after, and I'm like, even after it produces a good first draft, I'm like, oh, I'll have a lot of edits here. I want to change the syntax, and I don't, and it's crazy to me. And of course, I build a product, and what we're promising is the thing I'm skeptical of. A lot of Silicon Valley product people like me always think they can do better, and they think their products suck. But I'm amazed at how good it is every single time I use it. And our team also uses it for, if you go to our brand social accounts on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook, all that content is drafted by Blaze. All of our ads are drafted by Blaze. Our webinars are drafted by Blaze. So yeah, we use it internally, not just for proof of concept, not just, as I'm saying, to kind of rebuild our faith in the product, but also because it's fast and it's good. And we have a marketing team of 5 people. Each of them supports $2 million in revenue. There's way more work to do than those people can do alone. And so, of course, we have contractors and other folks helping us, but we do use AI to do exactly what we promise to our customers, which is produce better content in half the time in ways that help you grow sales.
How do you think with AI, and not just specifically to marketing, but anything, garbage in, garbage out, right? So if there's ideas, thoughts, strategy, whatever that's being plumbed into AI, it can only work with what it's got, and then it may well spit out something equally crap. So how can you mitigate for that in what you do and what Blaze does? How can you mitigate for the human errors in the input to make the output a more refined or a better output?
Well, I don't think you can to a certain extent, and I think that's a good thing. I think some people think about this dystopian future where we are all just mindlessly consuming mediocre content all day long that's overwhelming our feeds. But I believe in a future where AI empowers human creativity rather than suppresses it. And I think if you look at any major wave of technology, I often look at the industrialization of food as an example. If you even go back 50 or 60 years, we used to live in a world where you couldn't get tomatoes year round, and we would have major food crises all the time where people would die from infections. And now, I think the floor of the food we eat every day has gone up. We don't see, thankfully, people dying as much. You can get low price, pretty delicious food, even if it's not healthy most of the time. You can buy anything you want in a supermarket, but we've also seen is this explosion of creativity because if you look at the rise of celebrity chefs or people traveling around the world for Michelin-starred foods or content around food, people trying tons of recipes at home with all the books that are on offer now. I think technology often enables people to do more and do higher level work than they were doing before. We spend more time thinking about what to make and reading a recipe and we use food processors to cut up our onions instead of spending hours doing that. I think the same thing is true with AI and content. I think it will, enable people who were not doing anything before or people who were spinning their wheels, which is actually a lot of our customers, to produce higher quality content because Blaze knows how to write a really good landing page. It knows how to create an SEO post that ranks on certain keywords. It knows how to write social media content that converts. It can pick good images for you from a library of billions of images that you don't have time to search on your own. And so the floor of the content goes up, but AI basically is able to, the way the technology works is it looks at things that happened in the past to predict the present. It cannot take the present and predict the future. That's only something that humans can do. And I think people value things that are scarce, and great creativity is, I think, one of the scarcest qualities of all. And so there'll be folks, even as the floor moves up, there'll be folks who don't use AI at all, whose businesses will slowly die. There'll be folks who use AI but don't bring any creativity to it, and so they'll be okay, but they'll kind of do the same thing they're doing. And there'll be folks that invest in the benefits of the technology by reallocating their time to coming up with new ideas instead of writing the same social media post 100 times over. And those folks will combine their creativity with the power of AI and see their businesses skyrocket. And I think this has been true of any major technology wave. We have our phones, and there's some people who use Google Maps to become a local anywhere, any city they land in the world. There's some people who still can't get from A to B, even though there's a map on their phone. And so I think that we won't see, this kind of like socialist future where everybody's doing the same thing, but like we will see the winners become even bigger and there'll be new types of winners who maybe don't even have the resources of big companies as we're talking about. And there'll be losers too. But I think that the polls will actually extrapolate more. I think the great businesses will emerge that are able to combine their creativity with the power of AI using fewer resources and time than ever before.
I remember when Jasper came on the scene, it was quite a bang or quite a splash. They were investing in marketing and doing webinars, and it seemed like perhaps one version of the future. What was it that you saw as a founder, I guess, of Blaze already or soon to be Blaze, that you thought, I could do that better?
It's a great question. I think often in technology, it's often the second wave movers that tend to become the biggest companies. And I hope we're in the second wave and not in the first wave personally. But I think the reason for that is that a lot of first wave companies are early detectors or adopters of a powerful new innovation and technology, and basically like put the technology out there without a clear understanding of who the customers are or what the use cases are. And so they get a huge spike in initial adoption because people are interested in playing around, but the products are kind of generic. They're not really focused on a job to be done or a platform that does something that people would pay for. I actually think that ChatGPT is another example of this, where unless they continue to pivot it into something like search, it's just kind of a toy or a tool. But really what people need at the end of the day are products that do work for them, that they find valuable and will pay money for. And so, yeah, Jasper and Copy, I think were kind of canonical examples of this, where like you could generate a tweet, but their brand voice feature sucked. They didn't have any CMS capabilities where you could actually take that tweet and have AI schedule and post it for you. They didn't have any analytics where the AI could learn from the performance of its content and improve it over time. And I think what we did differently is we actually spent and still spend a lot of time talking to customers, and product managers, tech people, smart humans generally, I think, love to overcomplicate things because it's interesting to us. It's interesting to think of like these crazy products that can do a ton of things. It's easy to add complexity in, but when you talk to customers, what they ask for is often really simple. And simple doesn't mean easy. It is so hard to do what we're doing at Blaze every day. I tell my co-founder all the time, like, why is this so hard? And I think like a lot of important things in life, the answer is simple. It's just really, really hard to do. And when we talk to customers, what we heard is, first, we need great content to grow. We're not able to do it ourselves. We don't have the time or money or skills. And so in talking to customers, we saw this immense need at kind of the lower end of the market with prosumers, SMBs. When we talked to big enterprise customers and showed them a version of our product, they were like, yeah, this is interesting, but yeah, we got to go talk to our legal team. We got to go talk to our security team. And like in performance reviews, how do we evaluate what the AI did versus the human? And so it was clear to us that like this was a nice to have problem for them. They had a ton of smart people working on the marketing. They were growing just fine. It's going to take them, years to figure this out. Whereas small businesses were like, wow, I need this right now. Like, can I use this today? And so we realized, well, there's a certain type of person that's going to adopt this product first because they don't have an alternative. As I mentioned, probably 30% of our customers are doing no marketing today. And so the alternative to Blaze is not another tool. It's nothing. It's no growth. And, my parents are small business owners. They don't have a website. My parents don't do anything on social media. And so I know what it looks like when you don't have the time or skills or money to invest in marketing. The answer is you're just not making good on your idea in the way that you want to. And that anxiety and that fear and that frustration is real, and it's very powerful. And so we identified that part of the market that no one seemed to be focusing on. And in fact, Jasper and Copy have moved up market. But then, as I mentioned, once we started producing content for people, they were like, hey, this is great, but I'd love to be the ability to post it. So then we built a CMS in the tool that now replaces, Buffer and later. And then people were like, hey, I actually want to see how the content's doing. And so we built analytics into the tools that replace dashboards. And then people were like, hey, it's really cool that you can make one piece of content, but I actually need a week's worth of content, or I need a month's worth of content. And so we built planning tools where you can where Blaze can generate a month's worth of content or a quarter's worth of content for you in a couple minutes. And then people were like, hey, that's great, but I spent all this time writing a white paper or recording a podcast or making a video, and I'd love the ability to actually use that as source content rather than having to repeat it myself. So we built tools where you can turn video files, audio files, websites into other pieces of content. And so if you just talk to customers enough, I think they tell you what they want pretty clearly. And then, of course, it's really hard to go build that and build it in a way that's high quality. What we hear from customers now is, hey, like Blaze is really great, but there's so much here. I just don't actually have the time to like master it all and do it all myself. Like you built too big of a product in some ways for the amount of time I have. And so can you just do it for me? Like, can I just tell you what I want? Or actually, can you tell me what I should be doing? Like, can you tell me that if I'm a lawn care company in Denver, what channels I should be in, what I should be talking about, who I should be talking to, what the themes are, and then can you just go do it for me? And yeah, send me some approvals, send me a recap of how it went and what you're going to do next. But like, I don't want to be involved at all. And that actually is how we work with our marketing contractors. That's how anyone works with another human they hire on their team. And of course, it's really hard to figure out how to do that and figure out how to do that in a way that matches customer expectations and delivers high quality content and experiences. But people are really clear often what they want. It's often really simple. It's often hard to build. And I'm making it sound simple to just lay that out for you so clearly. But most products that fail, I think, miss a step there somewhere along the way. They don't listen to customers, they make it too complicated, or they deliver a low quality product.
You mentioned feedback there throughout. How do you determine you have enough feedback? Is there a certain number, or do you just go kind of on feeling or experience at this point?
Yeah. So when I think that great product teams, great startups thrive on feedback. I mean, what else are you doing if you're not building something people want? And, I remember back in the Almanac days, especially the early days, like we had big enterprise clients, but we only had, tens of them, let's say, or a couple hundred. And so it was just so hard to get feedback. And we would just like be grasping for the tiniest morsels of anything people would say, like looking in the data for any trend. And now at Blaze, we are just deluged in feedback. We get so much feedback all the time. And we're a team of 25 people. We have 10 engineers. I'm the product manager with my co-founder. As I mentioned, we have 5 marketers. So we get more feedback every day than we possibly have time to sort through. And actually, a lot of our internal operations now are really focused on how do we process as much feedback as possible and turn it around and get improvements out to customers as quickly as possible. Our customers don't wait weeks for us to fix the product. So we, in many cases, have a 24 or 48-hour SLA for urgent bugs we find because they're busy. They're going to go find another tool that works if ours doesn't. So yeah, a lot of our company right now is set up around processing feedback. So every day, I just came off of 4 engineering stand-ups we have every morning. At the start of those stand-ups, we review new bug tickets from customers and assign them out immediately and give really fast SLAs onto them. We do customer webinars every single day that often are attended by a couple hundred people. And after that, the marketer on our team who does that sends a report. Basically, he goes and files 40 tickets and then sends themes along the way. For our big customers at Blaze, people who have 10 plus seats, we meet with them every month on a call to see what they want us to build next. And as I mentioned, it's not rocket science in that people tell you what they want and the themes are pretty clear over and over again. The tricky thing is just kind of how to build it all at the same time, how to fix the urgent bugs and invest in really important revolutionary improvements like the virtual marketing experience I was mentioning. I don't know if I'm answering your question there, but I often see some founders and I have been this person at certain moments in my life where they have an idea that they believe in and that they want to build. And there's a little bit of being a founder that's about seeing around the corner, being able to separate the signal from the noise, figure out what the future is going to be correctly in a way that is often contrarian that no one else is talking about. But if you do that too much, if that's like all you're doing, you end up just building for yourself. And the whole point of running a company is to build something other people want. And so when I meet founders that are doing that, I ask them, do you want to be an artist or do you want to be a founder? Artists, famously do art for themselves. And sometimes they can make money from it, but they often don't. And that's totally fine. Nothing wrong with that. But if you want to be a successful business person, you have to build something for other people. And it is often not the thing that you want to do for you. It's often something that people tell you. And there are many ideas that I have loved that I've had to ditch at Blaze because it's been clear that people don't want those things. I'm wrong most of the time around what people want. And the only way that we as a company have been right is that we spend our time listening to people.
What advice would you give to an SMB owner that may be just starting and don't have access to an existing client database that gives them that feedback? Where can they go to get some feedback from their ideal clients or test their product market fit?
Well, I think it's a problem if no one loves the thing you're building. That means I think you should probably pivot and try and find an angle to your product that some people love. I think if you're in the early stages of product development, though, even if most people are turning from your product or coming to your landing page and not buying your product, if anybody is, even 5 or 10% of your customer base, there is like a sliver of brilliance in there, and I think that's the thing to go and lean into. And my recommendation is to get those customers on the phone no matter what. Like, give them a Starbucks gift card, meet them in person if you're in the same location, and ask them, who are you? Like, how'd you find out about my product? Why did you buy it? What do you like about it? What could we do better? I always ask, if you had a magic wand, what would you have Blaze do? Basically, to try and understand what people want next, or what's the ideal version of our product, to try and figure out not just incremental improvements, but also things that could be game changers. It's kind of like, before you have a lot of traction, it's like being in the woods, surrounded by fog, and you don't really know where to go. And your job is to try and find some trail, like some scent to follow. And yeah, so you have to get really good at sniffing. You have to kind of like lean heavily into like, what, if anything, is working. And if nothing's working, as I mentioned, you should pivot and be honest with yourself and say, hey, do I want to die in this woods, or do I want to try and find a trail? Even if you're not leaning into wherever you see growth, wherever you see a sense of traction, I think can lead to more traction, because then you can go. And my advice to those small business owners would be to go find more of those customers. What about that? If that person is, what about their demographics? Can you replicate? Where are they on the internet or in real life, where you can go find more of them? If you ask them to describe your product, repeat that messaging back to new potential customers or leads, and see if it works. It often does. And, kind of even if it's an inkling of success, reinvest in that, cultivate it, tend to it like a small flame. That's what we did, as I was mentioning with Blaze, realizing that, small business owners, even though enterprise customers are probably a ton more revenue than we get from our customers, small business owners is where we saw that small flame, and we fanned it over time and turned it into a big business. But you can do that no matter what you're doing.
I see what you did there. Small flame, Blaze. What's next for Blaze over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I've been kind of alluding to this throughout our conversation, but when I talked to our first tagline on our launch website was better content in half the time, and I knew that was a winning value prop because I had talked to enough customers where they had told me that's what they wanted, that I knew. And it's often hard to figure out the exact right words to reflect back to people what they want, because often people they kind of know what they want, but they don't know entirely. And I think the practice that you put in as a small business owner or as a founder is in kind of being able to relay back to people the thing that they want better than they could have described it. It's like the faster horses problem, where people want a car, but they want faster horses. And great entrepreneurs are able to kind of make that leap from the present into a future that people will pay for. I have a similar moment today with the product that we are building now, where, as I mentioned, what I think people really want is AI that does marketing for them. And I think if you think about the arc of AI as a technology, we started with basically like generic copilots like Claude or ChatGPT, where you can ask it to do a wide variety of stuff. It does it okay, but it's not specific to any job to be done. Yeah, you can ask it to write a blog post for you, but you can't really give it your website. You can't give it source materials. It can't post a blog post for you. So it's okay, but not great for any specific job. That was kind of phase one. And almost like kind of the first mover products I was mentioning, where it shows you what the technology can do, but it's not really commercializable. The second phase was what I would call vertical copilots. And so Blaze for marketing, or Harvey for legal, or Cursor for coding. It's a tool that sits next to you and speeds up steps of a process, automates some of them for you. But you still need to kind of be there to do the work, or at least to verify it. But that's I don't think that's the end state of the technology because it still takes a lot of time for people. And yeah, it's a 5x improvement over what you're doing today, maybe 10, but and which is again enough to build a $1 billion business. That's totally great. But AI is, I think, even more transformative than that. I think the end state of AI is one where it's just doing the work for you. And so rather than, and you can kind of see this first with some of the coding tools out there where I read a tweet the other day where now someone was saying with Cursor, they basically just press approve all every time. Like they don't even look at the code. They just trust it enough to say like, hey, sure, this looks fine. And with code, it's kind of easy to do that because you can basically put it on the internet and see pretty quickly if it's good or not, if it works or doesn't. With marketing, it's harder. You takes a little bit of time to figure out if people actually do click on that content. There's not that kind of immediate verification of quality that creates instant trust. But I think that's the end state of AI is this. Some people call it agentic. I hate that term. I think it's more of like, in our case, a virtual marketer, where the AI is doing the work for you, where it's able to learn on its own, where it's able to collaborate with other forms of AI out there in the same way that you would hire a human to do those things, or an agency in the case of marketing. So that's I think that's I think what people really want. As I mentioned, when I talk to people today about our product, the feedback that they give us is sometimes it's a criticism like, hey, this thing's too complicated. Sometimes it's self-criticism like, oh, I wish I had more time to learn how to do this. Sometimes it's a request for education like, hey, can you do more webinars or have more videos, which are all totally fair things. But what people I think are really saying there is like, I don't have time for this. Like, I don't have time to learn how to do this. Even though, yeah, you speed up or improve certain things like, yeah, the content's higher quality, it takes less time. That's like still not good enough. I'm still too busy as a small business owner. And so I think the end state for our market is AI that does marketing for you. And we have actually been building this over the last couple of months, and it's really exciting. It's crazy to see how it works, to build it. We actually modeled the interactions off of how we work with our team internally, how we work with contractors externally, the same ceremonies that I think many great marketers have been refining over decades. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel there. That's how people should work together. What we're trying to do is replace a human with technology on the other side, to the point where you don't even realize it's technology. And we're a couple of weeks away from being able to launch this. I don't know when this episode will go live. It might go live after this point, but that's the crazy thing, is not just how much time it saves or how good it is, but also how cheap it is. For our customers, my hope is we'll be able to offer this at like $100 a month, which is like 1/10,000th of the cost of what you'd pay a human to do the same work. And so that feels like a real game changer, where we can make great marketing more accessible to many more people. I think that's really exciting. I think, as I mentioned, it's really hard to build that. I think many people will try. Hopefully we will stay on top. But I think what will differentiate us over time is that people with Blaze are not just paying for a high quality product. They're paying for our customer service. They're paying for the community they get with our product. They're paying for a brand that understands them, that loves them. It's always clear to me which products don't actually like their customers. I'm sure you, as a consumer, have this experience when you're like, hey, do you really want my money? Like, do you really like me? And we do like our customers here. We try and do right by them. And I think that's the future for us, is continuing to invest in this segment of people so that they can succeed in ways that they haven't been able to.
I hope you can do taxes next. It's tax season. I have some rapid fire questions for you. What's one tool or app besides Blaze that you can't live without?
I use a to-do app called Workflowy. It's probably the tool I've been using the longest. I've been probably using it for like 20 years. It's a simple to-do list that it's just all bullet points. You can zoom in on them or zoom out. I run my whole life in it. My personal life, my work life. The beauty is in what it doesn't do. It's not trying to be a calendar or a Kanban board or a note-taking app. It's just a to-do list, and it's so well executed. I don't know the founder personally. I'm not an investor. I just think it's an amazing tool.
If you weren't leading Blaze, what career path would you pursue?
I've always wanted to open a bar. And so I think that's what I will do next after Blaze. I'd also love to get involved in politics somehow.
Back to the White House.
We'll see.
How do you stay productive despite all the distractions in today's world?
I make time for rest and relaxation so that when I do need to focus, I'm able to do so really effectively.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing your exciting arc with us, and definitely look forward to your next version releasing in a couple of weeks, or perhaps around the time that this podcast goes out. Is there anything that we didn't get a chance to touch on that you'd like to highlight?
Well, if you're, I love talking to small business owners if that's not clear. So if you're listening to this and you have a question about how to help your business grow faster or about Blazor AI, I'd love to hear from you. I write a newsletter called Startup Tycoon, and I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter most of the day. So please reach out to me, DM me. I'd love to hear from you.
Great. We'll put those links in the show notes. Well, thank you, Adam, for talking to us today. It was a real pleasure, real eye opener.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.